I recently drove solo through 48 states in record time.
8 days, 16 hours, 32 minutes.
I got to see some really cool things and had a ton of fun, but I had to sleep in my car and it was exhausting.
So cold.
It also wasn't a complete world record for all 50 states, and it wasn't the fastest I could go.
Never driving again.
So we're gonna do it again. But this time we're doing all 50 states. It's gonna be way bigger, way better, and way faster. This time we have a team and a budget and planes and food. We wanna be the first team to visit all 50 in under 6 days. There is literally nothing that could stop us, right? The United States. People have been trying to find the fastest route through all 50 for years. And that includes me. So when the company I worked for offered the resources to make an attempt at the record, I had to do everything possible to make sure that we succeeded. And the first step was finding a van.
You video me right now?
Yeah. This is my buddy Chad. Chad has a 15-year-old van that he wants to sell us for the trip. Even though it has over 200,000 miles on it, the engine in this thing is supposed to last forever. It just has a few cosmetic problems. We've also got to build it out with beds and a bathroom. Nothing a few trips to the hardware store can't fix. The van also needs a little cleaning. So while Nugget helps me fix up the van, let me tell you about the route. Not the one from the 48 state trip. That one's obsolete. We've got a way better one now with the help of eSite Analytics. It's nerd time! So how did we come up with such an awesome route? At eSite, we use a ton of data and machine learning to help our clients understand their companies geospatially. One of the data sets we use is traffic and routing data. We cram that data into a bunch of fancy code to solve for the optimal drive to the United States. So now that we've got a van and a route for the lower 48, we book a couple flights to Hawaii and Alaska and start assembling a team. But before we could start, there was a problem. You see, our starting point for the drive is in Seattle, Washington. Unfortunately, the van is on the East Coast. So before we drive across the country, I have to drive the van across the country. And I had better hurry up because we're leaving for Hawaii in 1 week. So that's exactly what I did. I took the van out of the East Coast, into the Midwest, and through the Rockies. And everything was fine. Until it wasn't. Geez, this sounds so bad. That's right. Along the drive, somewhere between Boise and Seattle, a whole bunch of things started going wrong. And without any mechanics in the area equipped to work with Mercedes Sprinter vans, I had no choice but to push through to Seattle. So I drove around the city trying to find someone who could help. I eventually made it to Stone Sprinter Garage. They told me exactly what I didn't want to hear, that the van's engine was wearing from the inside out. It was going to take thousands of dollars and weeks to fix. I had bet everything on this van, so I offered them a deal. I'd sell them the van for the amount of money I thought we needed for a backup plan. I was in a tight spot, so they really helped me out when they agreed. They wouldn't buy the van until the paperwork got mailed in from South Carolina. This was all really stressful because the team was starting to arrive. So I left the garage and met Justin in the city. We just had to hope that when we got back to Seattle, we could get the money and a new car as quickly as possible, because the next time we'd be in Seattle, we would be on the clock. There wasn't much more I could do at that point. Justin and I met JP and we headed to the airport. The starting line was in Hawaii. Then we were going to fly to Alaska and then back to Seattle, where Bill and Jim were hopefully going to meet us with a new car. But before we officially started, we had 3 days to relax in Hawaii. After a really long flight. But Hawaii was freaking awesome. We ended up renting a car and driving all over the island. We got to surf Waikiki and Sunset and Pipe. But before we knew it, it was time to officially start the attempt. We started the timer right before wheels up on the flight to Alaska.
We're passing 10,000 feet. No timing for both safety speakers and bus passes. You can now use current devices in airplane mode and seat power is available.
We landed in Alaska right before sunrise, but we weren't heading to Seattle anytime soon. Unfortunately, we had a 9-hour layover. So we made the best of it, rented a car for that time, and drove around outside Anchorage. The whole time we were in Hawaii, we still didn't have a car to drive through the 48 states. But on our flight from Hawaii to Alaska, Jim and Willie had worked a miracle. The last thing we needed was the cash from the sale of the old van. But I still had no idea if the paperwork had made it to the garage in Seattle. With 2 states down and landing in Washington, the team had to make a tough decision.
Dude, I'm sorry.
Dude, it's okay. I'm just gonna sit here and cry for like 3 hours.
No! Dang it!
Yeah. Dude.
The van that Jim and Willie managed to get was a lot smaller than the Sprinter van. So JP took one for the team and tapped out early. Losing JP wasn't fun, and Justin and I were exhausted for traveling for almost 24 hours. So seeing Jim and Willie pull up in the van was a huge sigh of relief. And the title to the van had also made it to the garage.
Yeah.
So I met up with one of the guys, signed everything, and we were off.
He just like handed me a wad of cash.
There's a few things you should know about Jim and Willie. These two were built for this kind of road trip. In addition to being two of the easiest people to be stuck in a car with for 4 days, they also used to be enduro racing buddies back in the day. Jim and Willie took the night shifts, while Justin and I drove throughout the day. And for a while we had a solid rotation going where we would each take turns driving 6-hour shifts. Unfortunately, this did not last the whole trip, because one of us would have to go home soon.
So this is what 24 hours looks like. Justin and Thomas's 9th state, mine and Billy's 7th.
We were flying, making insanely good time with the rotation we had settled into. But we would have to figure out a new one with just 3 drivers because Willie would have to fly back home to work. Willie fixes cell phone networks when they go out for unexpected reasons, so give him a thanks next time you're able to watch your cat videos in a hurricane. He had one more night shift and then we were dropping him off in Minneapolis. We arrived in Minneapolis midday the next morning.
It's nice to meet you. You too. I'm sorry I'm bailing.
It was a bummer to see Willie leave also, but the rest of us were still on the clock and we had to get going.
There's so many crumbs.
The 3 of us were starting to get tired, but we still had about half the drive to go. We had an uneventful drive around the Great Lakes, and to stay on track we needed to make it to Ohio by nightfall.
Hello everyone. This is day 3 or day 4. So right now Justin's driving. Thomas is in the back. And you'll notice that Billy is no longer with us. And now it's the 3 of us to finish out the remainder of the trip.
We drove through the night with the goal to get to Florida the next day. That represented the last big turn of the trip, because from Florida, it was almost a straight shot all the way up the East Coast to the finish line. Down to 3 people and sleep deprived, this last leg was running on caffeine and adrenaline.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's looking pretty good for us unless something unforeseen comes upon us. going through tonight, and hopefully we'll be there at some point tomorrow.
We were on the home stretch. We just had one more night to drive. I had just finished my last shift and Jim was taking over to get us through the night. The sun rose as we were entering Maryland from West Virginia, and then we decided to risk an hour-long detour into DC for the cherry on top. Jim drove us through the night and then all the way around New York City. This was his final shift, so Justin geared up to finish the remaining 5 states. Justin took some incredible pictures of the trip. Be sure to follow him on Instagram at Follyhood or check out his website, follyhood.com. Now that we were so close, we were feeling really confident about beating our goal, being the first people to visit all 50 states in 6 days. If we were able to pull this off, this would be a new world record. With just a few miles to go, the trip odometer flicked over to 7,000 miles. When we arrived at our final state crossing at White River Junction, Vermont, the team gave me the honors of driving across.
Hello everyone, we're back. We are about to cross the finish line. So here we go. This is the Lyman Bridge. There we go, we are done. We are in Vermont.
5 days, 16 hours, 20 minutes.